For 3 decades, he was house attorney to some of the most powerful mob bosses in America. Frank Ragano not only defended criminals like Santo, Trafficante, and Jimmy Hoffa, he learned the inner workings of their operations. He has just completed a 1-year sentence in a medical provisional facility and has written his memoir, Mob Lawyer. Also here are his co-author, New York Times reporter Selywn Raab, and New York Post columnist Jack Newfield, who interviewed Frank Ragano 2 years ago and was on this broadcast at that time. I'm pleased to have each of you here. Why, your story is fascinating. I want to get to that, but how did you get involved and why are you collaborating and what made this story interesting for you?
It's the most fascinating story I've experienced in 25 years of covering organized crime. Frank is the first...
fascinating of all the stories you've seen?
For this reason. We've always had information about organized crime that came second and third hand. Courtroom testimony, occasionally from tapes, mainly from organized crime prosecutors and investigators. Frank is the first mob lawyer in our century to ever come forward and tell us what was really going on behind the scenes.
And you believe everything Frank tells you?
I wouldn't have written the book if I didn't.
Okay, I just want to have that on the record. Newfield, wait, get into you, Frank. Newfield, tell me, what do you think of this, and what do you think of Ragano's story? And here is a man who steps forward, you know, who represented these guys, Trafficante, knew Carlos Marcello.
Counseled him also.
Counseled him as well. Knew Jimmy Hoffa, knew how the relationship, I mean, you buy all of this?
Well, the part of it that I did a
Frontline
documentary on that focused on the assassination of President Kennedy.
Right.
And I have, to this day, view the JFK assassination as this giant jigsaw puzzle that will always have 4 or 5 pieces missing. And when I met Frank, I felt he added 1 or 2 new pieces to the puzzle that allowed us to begin to make out these 3 faces.
Because he explained the relationship between Hoffa and these 2 southern mobsters.
Well, we knew that relationship existed. I thought
what
Frank added was 1, the deathbed confession by Trafficante to Frank, where he says to him 4 days before he dies, I think Carlos, meaning Marcello, screwed up. We should have killed Bobby and not Jack. I think that is an important piece in the puzzle. The other is that he was with Santo Trafficante the night President Kennedy was murdered.
And he was celebrating.
And he can describe the euphoria of Santo Trafficante. And I knew from writing a book about Robert Kennedy how much Bobby wanted to get rid of, prosecutorially, both Marcello and Trafficante, and already had Hoffa. And I think he provides reinforcement for the motive. Why kill President Kennedy? Get rid of Robert Kennedy as Attorney General.
And there was that notion about striking the head. Why kill somebody who...
Right, chop off the tail.
Chop off the tail and you chop
head.
off the head. Let me just... Why... I want to get to your story, which is crucial and important, but why... I mean, what happened to this code of silence and all of this stuff that you lawyers don't step forward and disclose their clients'
of course,
criminal acts?
A combination of factors, really. First of all, I didn't retire from the practice of law until October of 1991. Until then, I was prohibited from disclosing client-attorney communications. I would have had a very difficult time with the Florida Bar Association.
Right. But there's also this notion of if you disclose we happen to talk about 2 people who are now dead, right? Marcello and Trafficante.
Marcello was alive.
Yeah, but he's
the front line.
Yeah, right. But where is he now? I've forgotten where.
Marcello was alive. He died a few months ago.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's right. That's what I thought. So they're both dead. You know, and even before he died, he was in no state to talk. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Somebody said to me that he had Italian Alzheimer's. He only remembered his vendettas at that point.
Tell me the story. What is it that... Tell me about the deathbed conversation, first of all, and what Trafficante said and why you believed him.
Well, first of all, the reason I believed him, I represented him for 27 years.
Never lied to you?
Never lied to me. Never lied to me. He would withhold information, but he would never lie. I never caught him in a lie. And we had a tacit understanding, he and I, that I would not ask him questions about his personal life, but only in matters regarding legal proceedings. But he never lied. Never lied at all. And in 1986, when he was going to trial, he was a very, very sick man. And in fact, we had a common cardiologist who told me at the time that he only had a short period of time to live. He was on a dialysis machine 3 times a week and all. And when he came to see me a week before the trial, he was horrified at the thought of dying in prison, and he sought my assistance. And I can't tell you how horrified he was. And he's referred to me as Jay, always called me Jay. Jay, don't let me die in prison. Whatever you do, we've been friends all of these years. Don't let me die in prison, that sort of thing. And I decided to represent him, much to my regrets now. But I decided to represent him. He was acquitted, and he did cause me to become. He could have prevented me from being indicted back in 1971. I think it was a combination of factors. I think that I was the only person that he could really talk to, and he wanted to get a number of things off of his chest.
All right, so you had this deathbed conversation.
Yes.
Tell me what they told you happened.
Insofar as
and what do you believe happened?
What he told me had happened was that Carlos blanked up. Anyhow, they made a mistake.
Yeah, right.
They should have killed. Yeah, they should have killed Bobby instead. But he told me many other things, regrets in his life, mistakes he made in his lifetime, and all. That wasn't the only thing. And he was just reminiscing about mutual friends and incidents we were involved in over the years.
What did he say to you about Hoffa after the killing of Hoffa?
Well, he told me exactly what had happened. And I was, of course, familiar with the events that led up to his disappearance. But he told me, as a matter of fact, 4 days, warned me 4 days before Jimmy Hoffa disappeared, that I should warn Jimmy not to do anything stupid and don't take any chances.
Like get in a car after at a restaurant and drive off with somebody.
But I didn't realize at the time that he meant that Jimmy was about to be murdered. I was under the impression that perhaps they were trying to set him up for a violation of his parole or something of that nature. But yes, I believe those fellows not only had the motive, but they were capable of doing exactly what they said.
Now, a lot of people will say they accept the fact that Oswald did it, and how did they get Oswald to do the act, to be the hitman for them?
I don't pretend to know whether or not there was 1 gunman, 2 gunmen. I'm really not into that.
Yeah.
All I can tell you is that they had the motivation and they had the capability. These were 2 of the most devious and cunning minds I've ever run across in my life. And as evidence of the fact that they were capable of carrying something like that out, when the CIA decided that they wanted to eliminate Fidel Castro, they called on Santo Trafficante.
But they bungled that too.
No.
They did.
No, never.
Castro's alive. And all that stuff, the cigars and stuff, didn't work.
They took a dive.
No, well,
Frank
Frank explains that, in effect, what Santo Trafficante did was con the CIA.
Oh,
he took their
thinking,
money.
Yeah, right.
Thinking he was going to do something, he just took their money and goodbye, fellas.
Yeah.
But what that tells me, though, is that they had more confidence in the mob eliminating Castro than they had their own agents, in their own agents.
Well, they didn't have a whole lot of confidence in the CIA at that point. I mean, it ought to be said after the Bay of Pigs. Right, Jack? Yes. Does this, for you, notwithstanding all the things that have been written and notwithstanding the fact that nobody's come forward with sort of incriminating, this is the first sort of linkage that we've had from someone who is at least partially credible. Some people would cast doubt on your credibility because of your associations, and you understand that. And because you, does this for you prove that the mob did the assassination of
No,
President
we're not
Kennedy?
saying we can prove it. All we're saying is
No, I said, does it prove it to you? Not that you can prove it to a jury, but does it, in your mind, without reservation, prove to you that the Southern mobsters killed the president using Lee Harvey Oswald?
I'm not a lawyer, but I'll be careful. What we're saying is the Southern mob wanted him killed.
New Orleans and
variety of
Tampa,
reasons. Right.
specifically.
Both Santo Trafficante in Tampa in Florida and Carlos Marcello in Louisiana.
Right.
They needed Hoffa. Hoffa was their conduit to the pension fund for raping the Teamster pension fund.
Hoffa loaned him a lot of money. Out of
And
the
they needed
pension
him,
fund.
and if Bobby Kennedy was going to get Hoffa, a big source of their money was going to dry up.
And he quotes Jimmy Hoffa as saying, you got to do something about this for me.
The other thing that people keep forgetting is that Carlos Marcello in Louisiana, one of his bookmaking rings was run by Dutz Millay. Dutz Millay was Lee Harvey Oswald's uncle. And Lee Harvey Oswald spent the summer of '63 in New Orleans, and he was close to Dutz Millay. So, I mean, what conclusion you can draw from that, we haven't got the smoking gun. All we're saying is here's some facts that haven't been known before.
And how did they get Oswald to do it then?
Well,
Jack,
remember
was it
one
by
thing.
now?
Remember one thing about the mob. Do you remember the Colombo assassination in Columbus
Joe
Circle?
Colombo in
Joe
Columbus
Colombo
Circle,
was
right.
assassinated.
The Colombo
Joey Gallo
family.
got a fall guy, a black person he met in prison to
do it.
assassinate. And this has often been used by organized crime, by the mafia. You get somebody who's a straw man, a prop. Therefore, it will never come back to you.
How strong is organized crime today, and how much have they been decimated by the RICO prosecutions? I mean, everybody knows that John Gotti's in jail and will probably be there for the rest of his life.
RICO, undoubtedly, the RICO statute certainly reduced the strength of the mafia. There's no question about it. That was a tool, I think, that was needed, and certainly it's been very, very effective. I don't think there's...
They're all becoming government witnesses.
Right, I know.
A murder now means get me a miniseries.
Charlie, one thing you're forgetting about Frank's credibility.
Yeah.
Frank, before I met Frank, and before we wrote this book, Frank was interrogated by G. Robert Blakey.
Right.
Blakey is
Who was the
probably
general counsel to the House Committee.
House Committee. He's also probably one of the most incomparable expert in organized crime in America.
And the point is?
And he thinks Frank's story has the ring of truth.
Yeah.
But more than that, when we interviewed Blakey for our show,
Frontline.
I said, is Ragano a revelation? He says, no, it's a confirmation of what I wrote 15 years ago in the House Assassination Committee report, where Blakey and the Congress wrote that Marcello, Trafficante, and Hoffa, quote, had means, motive, and opportunity to commit the assassination.
I'd like to make an observation along that line.
Okay.
Professor Blakey has certainly supported my theory. And let's keep in mind that he wrote the report for the House Select Committee on the assassination of the President,
Right.
investigation. He wrote the report. In order to write that report, he had to read all of those documents, a lot of which have never been released to the public.
Right.
So if there's anything in those documents that contradict what I'm saying, he certainly wouldn't
Okay.
go public and support my position.
This book, the foreword was written by Nick Pileggi, and all of us know Nick Pileggi has also been one of those journalists in America who really understands how organized crime is written and has written about it brilliantly. Why did you decide to come forward one more time now? Guilt?
It's a combination factor. My age, my health, I have multiple medical problems. I was no longer bound by the code of ethics not to disclose confidential
Right.
information. I'm 71 years
How about
of age.
money?
Of course, I'd like to be compensated for my efforts, of course.
All right.
But that wasn't the primary reason, I can assure you.
All right. These two extraordinary journalists, outstanding journalists, have confirmed, in a sense, Frank Ragano's story here. It is an interesting and fascinating look inside.
And it's limited to what he knows. There's no
Right. No
logistics
no
of how it was done.
interpolation of beyond that. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
It's
for
limited.
Thank you.
Frank Ragano and Selywn Raab, forward by Nick Pileggi, inside account of who killed Jimmy Hoffa and JFK. Mob Lawyer is the title. Thank you, son. Great to see you.